There's a general awakening happening where people are saying there must be more than this. I think that we are in the midst of an enormous awakening of humanity. And I think old systems will probably fall away, new ones will arrive, and they'll be powered by consciousness itself, because that's the collective of who we are. Well, we've got a new tide breaking.
Hey, Guy here. As you can see, I got my hands full. This is my son, Ellis. I'm multitasking this morning, literally just before I jump on a plane to Bali. So if you're seeing this on audio or listening on audio, you can see him wriggling around here. Anyway, today I welcome back to the podcast Pete Smith, which is fantastic conversation. I definitely recommend you check out the first one as well if you enjoy this today. We dive into obviously consciousness and quantum reality and his definition of it. We also tackle the global awakening and the systemic change that's happening in the world at the moment. And it's really interested to get Pete's take on that. And another fascinating topic, obviously, around healing and rewriting your past, which is phenomenal, which is what we get into a lot, especially through the Michael Newton Institute as well, where Pete is a big part of these days. And then we dive into human potential and the future of humanity and where it's going. What a conversation. If you want to join us for a retreat, come and meet us in person. We are going to be in Australia, New South Wales. Well, it's really hard with it this year. Yes, buddy, I know. Apologies. I'll keep this short. In September, 5 days, come and meet us in person where the rubber meets the road. We also obviously do online mentoring. You can come and join us there if you're somewhere else in the world and experiences these processes online that we do almost every week. It's all happening. Links are below, even though there's a free meditation there. Enjoy this conversation with Pete. Be sure to let me know where you are in the world, as well as we connect if you're on YouTube, and leave a comment. I love connecting with everyone. Say goodbye, Ellis. Goodbye. All right. Much love. Enjoy this conversation. Pete, welcome back to the podcast, my man. It's so good to see you.
Great to be here, Guy. I'm looking forward to another awesome conversation.
Absolutely. And we might as well just dive straight into the deep end, as we were talking off air as well. And I think when it comes to the term consciousness, I think that's a great place to start. I mean, it's a word that I'm hearing getting thrown around a lot as well. It's becoming popular in some respects. But I was wondering, how would you define consciousness right now, and even the collective consciousness of the planet, and how these things intermerge, and where you feel that we go in as in humanity? Because a lot's even happened since the last 18 months since you come back on the podcast. I think we were just coming out of COVID. There'd been a huge amount of trauma and fear, and like the world had been turned upside down. And I don't know about you, but I just feel more and more people are leaning into, I don't like to use the word alternative, because I really don't feel it is alternative. I feel like it's truth of who we are. But if we're not familiar with it, then it might feel alternative at first. But these applications at the workshops and what you do with your life between lives and your quantum consciousness and things, there's a lot in there, but I'd love to hear your thoughts at this point in time, Pete.
Well, for me, Guy, consciousness is the piece that holds it all together. And if you've got a spiritual person, you've got a scientific person, they're all starting to talk to this middle ground that is about consciousness. And for me, you mentioned quantum consciousness. My definition out of that type of consciousness, quantum is the science of possibility, and consciousness is the fabric of reality. So when you've got the fabric of reality and you put the science of possibility together, you open the door to so much more than what we would have. For me, when I'm asked to explain consciousness, I usually jump into a bit of an analogy, because there's this whole, what is energy, what is consciousness, what about us and who we are and how do we fit? And the way I try to explain it to people is that, if you imagine the ocean, and the seabed is the infrastructure of energy that the whole universe is made of. Okay, so that's the infrastructure, that's the energy. Consciousness is the ocean. It's just there. and it permeates everything on that infrastructure. And then our awareness is like the sea creatures that move through that ocean of consciousness, going wherever they need to do and having the adventures that they're meant to. But you see, those creatures don't know that the water's there. They're swimming in consciousness all the time, but they don't realize. So the energy is the seabed that holds it up. Consciousness is the fabric of reality as we know it. And we are those sea creatures moving through consciousness, having the adventures that we're here to have.
Huh. I love that analogy. And I've heard something similar, but not broken down as much, where it was like we're the goldfish in the water, but we're so thirsty for something more. And nobody's taught us how to take a drink because we're not even aware that we're already in it. And it's within us and around us already from that. So I guess with that in mind, then, how do we start to bring that awareness to it? And how does that then show up in our lives? Because I feel it's such a interesting time in history right now. I feel like there's no accident. We're all here, that all this is going on. You could either look at it as a terrifying time to be alive or an exciting time to be alive, depending on, I guess, how you view reality based upon your perception of how you think and feel and of being on any key moment, you know. But I see it as exciting because I never would have, I don't think, even where I am today, as I continue to evolve my state of awareness and my state of being, like the fact that I can access technology and I can speak to people like yourself, Pete, or you know, put an ad on Facebook and encourage people to come to one of our workshops. I mean, to me, that is so special as well, just depending on how we use the tools and how we see ourselves in the world right now.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
I do indeed. And I think all of this is becoming possible, Guy, because the conditioning that we've been offered is starting to fall away. And people are starting to question things. And they're starting to say, well, why is there so much censorship on social media? You know, there's all these things happening in the world, but there's this thing happening over here that doesn't seem to be quite right. We look at our educational systems. We look at, you know, are we teaching the limitations of humanity or are we teaching the magnificence of humanity through those educational systems? You know, our political systems, they're based on the idea of separation. You have one elected government, the other one's called the opposition. I mean, that does nothing for humanity moving into step together and pursuing oneness. You know, even our medical systems, and there's a lot of trust that has been lost there in recent years as well. And alternative health is now being looked at as viable alternatives to different things. So, and financial systems, we know that that's held together by sticky tape and rubber bands. So people are looking at that now through a greater level of awareness because I feel that there's an awakening happening where people are starting to say, well, this isn't working for me anymore. What else is there? And that's when your workshops fill up. That's when I get a lot of people coming to me, and like any of us that are in the consciousness industry, if you like, people are looking for more. There's a general awakening happening where people are saying there must be more than this. It's like that goldfish in the bowl that you mentioned before that wants to have that drink. I think that we are in the midst of an enormous awakening of humanity. And I think old systems will probably fall away, new ones will arrive, and they'll be powered by consciousness itself because that's the collective of who we are. You know, if you go back to that ocean analogy, you know, we've got a new tide breaking.
Absolutely. How would you define an awakening for the individual and the collective? Because I can say this much on my journey so far, and I probably should swear to emphasize it, but it was been fucking uncomfortable, man. Like there's so many, it's like waves, you know, there's like and even when the word healing gets tossed around, like, what does that even mean? Right. Do you know what I mean? Like there's so many things that I'm conscious of saying, but it's like every time there's been a layer of I guess, trauma, ancestral, whatever you want to call it, or within me that was shaping my personality that I didn't even know was there. It was like my own inner goldfish bowl environment was muddied. And I just didn't know that it was until I started going in. And it's hard. Like I feel where the rubber meets the road, it can be challenging. It can be, I don't know if it has to be, but when we ride those waves and we are pulling those onion layers back, there is some discomfort there as growth occurs. And I think, wow, we're kind of is it getting forced upon us now because of where we are as humanity? And we have to go through those things. So there is a question in all of that, Pete. I'm getting on a tangent a bit, but yeah, back to the awakening.
Yeah, well, there's comfort in the known and there's discomfort in the unknown. And when we bring the unknown into our line of sight, it doesn't fit with what we've known so far. And we've been cultured, if you like, through society, through education, to reject that which we don't understand. But if we take the stance that everything happens for a reason, if we follow the breadcrumbs, if we know that that which comes forward in difficulty usually has something to teach us, and we ask that question, why has this come to me now and what is it trying to show me? And if you look at it with, a high vibrational inquiry mindset, what is life trying to show me? Why has my soul brought me to this? What am I meant to do with it? And normally that's how you grow. And I guarantee all the challenges that have hit you in recent times, I would imagine that that's the question that you've asked, and that's what leads to growth. But you can't grow when you're in a box. You have to move outside the box in order to grow. Humanity's been in a box for thousands of years. And back in ancient times, ancient wisdoms, some of the old cultures of the olden days, they used to explore beyond the box. And somehow we lost our way. And we moved into a society that is very structured, very ordered, and we continue to churn people out of our education systems that are replacement cogs in the existing machine. We don't need more replacement cogs. We need a new machine.
Yeah.
And I think here we've come to retire the old machine, people like you and me, and we've come to build a new one.
What do you feel then, is why do you think we've been in this box for so long as a humanity? Like even me as a valley boy in Wales, I was in that box. And it was only because I had such a innate pull in me there's got to be more. I was so unhappy and I just couldn't allow myself to buy into the current paradigm that was being presented to me. So there was something already, that fire was in me and I just didn't know what it was. I've come a long way since that Valley Boy in Wales kind of thing. But when I reflect, like it's that box is going back generation after generation after generation. I think, wow, like it boggles my mind sometimes. Do you think it's intentional or is just the way it is? It's just the way we evolve as humans?
Well, I think we're powered by corporate interests, materialism. Some people make a lot of money, some people make none. There's an incredible difference in the lifestyles of people on this planet. And I think the people that hold the cards in terms of power and control are at that top end and they don't really want to share because that's what greed is. I need to have more than other people. And I think that there's an awakening that can no longer be sustained. And I think it is a very well orchestrated system. As you know, I had an old corporate career, spent over 20 years in banking. And I remember the day where it changed for me. And it was in the 90s. It was maybe 25 years ago, something. I was quite young into senior ranks and we were closing a big site down in Sydney. And I sat down and it was all being centralized and modernized and mechanized. And I had to sit down and I had to sack 40 people in one day, hand them their envelope, and I went home that night pretty dejected about the world. But I got in the back of an envelope and I worked out the annual salary that we'd save from sacking those 40 people was going to pay the CEO's salary for a month. And that's when I decided that this was not the machine that I wanted to work in. And that woke me up to go and explore more. One thing led to another, and I am where I am now. But it's that kind of inequality that leads to the fall of civilizations, whether it's the French Revolution, whether it's, the Roman Empire. I mean, there's many, many examples through history that when so much is taken by so few, it cannot be sustained for all time. And that system eventually collapses because the energy of consciousness rises up and takes the world back.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, there's a complete, it's like we're living in such separation from each other, isn't it? And there's no unity or unison or whatever, or we're all made of the same stuff. It really is dog eat dog, and no compassion, no connection. And that's clearly changing in my life anyway, that's for sure. And as I am with other humans. What do you feel then is like on your journey then of the awakening up? Like, what have you learned? Like, because you've not only gone and like studied voraciously, teach. I don't know how many people you've worked with one-on-one with Life Between Lives and the quantum consciousness, the very things that you do and educate people with. Like, along that path as well, what have been the key steps for you or key realizations to realize, what we actually are, how powerful are we, and then how we apply it in our lives?
There's a synchronization in my path that every time I let go a little bit more, more comes. And a lot of the Life Between Lives work, of course, is about finding out about purpose for this lifetime. And some years ago, I sat down and I said, I surrender my need to have a purpose in this lifetime. And I just put myself forward as an instrument of the universe, work through me and help people however you want to. So I sort of surrendered up a little bit of me. Maybe that was a piece of the human ego that I no longer needed. I don't know. I think we're all still working on that one a bit.
Totally.
But things happened after that, Guy, because I surrendered, because I let go. An idea for a new book came through. New workshops started. I went back into Michael Newton Institute to bring a wave of change there that suddenly started to fall into my field of awareness, that there were changes that we needed to make there. I'm working with that with your great buddy, Petra.
Yes.
So, yeah, I mean, there's been times when I've just said, what's next? And when I get myself out of the way, more comes.
And on it continues. And it's just in that journey of surrender, isn't it?
Yeah. But surrendering to something as well. For me, it's about how can I serve? What's the difference I can make? How can I help other people? Yeah. And normally I have that conversation with myself and, I look back and I say, well, where did all those new clients come from? That sort of thing. It's because my energetic invitation out into the universe has been answered by those people and the powers that support them.
Yeah. On a journey to awakening or expanding our consciousness or however term we use it, what in your mind or what you've experienced through all of this is required to allow us to continue in that growth? Is it the healing journey? Is it the expansion journey? Is it the exploration journey? all of the above? I don't know. What are your thoughts?
I feel that all that lights the path, Guy,
Mm-hmm.
but I think you've got to strike the match first. For me, the striking of the match is simply your intuition. Something feels right. I really feel like I want to go to that workshop on, I really need to buy that book, or I really need to watch that podcast. And I feel that the soul talks to us through our intuition.
Right.
And it helps us know there's that wonderful old book that started me off 30 years ago, Celestine Prophecy.
Oh.
And in that, Redfield talks about two paths. One looks lighter, and they did this in a movie. It didn't quite match the book. The book was better, I felt. But, you could see on the movie where one path just seemed to be lighter than the other path. For me, it's about that lighter path will always be the one of least resistance. I think when we try to fight against our awakening, the universe pushes us harder. And that when we listen to that intuition, it's trying to help us find that lighter and easier path. But we've got to surrender our conditioning. If you look at the corporate box that most people are in, I want to get a bigger house, a better car, a better job. And that's also you can pay more income tax, sales tax, become a slightly larger cog in that old machine that no longer is as relevant as it used to be. And a lot of people who are trying to become the biggest possible cog in that machine, they've realized it's not a path to happiness. I've worked a lot with people with anxiety and depression, very senior people in corporate life. They're drawn to me because I was once there and I can speak a little bit of that language still. But it's all about, I'll challenge them. Are you happy? No, this is terrible. But if we just get that project over the line, then I'll be happy. And what happens with the next project? How do you set yourself up into a different vibration that allows you to be more of who you are without having to be that hamster on the wheel? It keeps going around. It keeps the corporate world ticking over and keeps that system in place. And I think more and more people are leaving that system now.
Yeah. Yeah. No, totally. I couldn't agree more. And I was just thinking whether to run this question, because you speak of the soul and you speak of our journey and, into that next evolution of vibration, but we need to relinquish the identity of, I guess, the ego or how we identify ourselves with, that it's because it's not serving us, it's working against us ultimately as we operate. So how do you identify with the soul, its soul's journey and its fulfillment through this physical experience we call life then? How do you view all that?
The start point for me is knowing the difference between the internal and the external journey. And the external journey is all about things and maybe even assistance outside ourselves. I just need to find the next healing person who can help me. Well, good healing people are only going to turn you inside anyway. And I completely know, I don't just believe, that the answers that we seek are not outside, they're inside. And the deeper we can go within ourselves, the more rich the answers that we will find. And it's not easy to go within because we've never been taught this. We've been taught all through our school systems and through society generally that everything's about the external journey, but the opposite is true. When people discover the inner magnificence of who they are, then they can be everything that they've ever been and more. I believe also that we're part of a quantum field. We are intricately entwined with far more than we realize. We have potentials beyond our knowing. We have gifts we've never discovered. And all we need to do is find ways more and more to get the human part of us out of the way so that those discoveries can be made. It starts with a workshop. You know this, people getting into the flow. It starts with meditation. It can start with a walk in nature. I mean, some of the greatest ideas I've ever had were walking along a beach or through a forest. And it's when we're in tune, in a vibrational resonance with the surroundings, that we realize that the vibration of the external is the same as the vibration of the internal. And when you're in the highest possible vibration environment, it activates something within you to be able to make discoveries that you can't get while you're running around a corporate office, or that you're sweating it out at the gym, trying to raise your vibration through a tough gym structure. And that can be helpful as well. Keeping the body healthy is great. But we need to simply say, there's more. I choose to discover. I choose to investigate. I choose to explore. Once we decide to explore, then you've written an invitation out to the universe to bring things into your line of path that can be life-changing.
Yeah. And that's given acknowledgement that there's more to this than the five senses, right? And there is a field of information that could well be a thought form or living or however it might operate. And there's way more to it than what we see with just the physicality of it all. And I think the pace of life is so demanding at the moment. It's so easy to be in those stress responses and just fixate on our problems and things and never really stop to peek our head out above the focus, right?
Absolutely. And when we connect with other people, we show the possibilities of this. And this isn't something that's completely separate. This is part of who we are. And a quick story, if I can, that helps people understand that. Yeah. We do some very human stuff, my dear partner and I. And, we do footy tipping for rugby league. So we do the tips, and we play that little Wordle game from the New York Times. We do that every morning just to keep ourselves, wake us up, keep us sharp, whatever. The number of times we've done Wordle and one of us has got it and the other one hasn't. And they say, Melina will say to me, "Did you get Wordle this morning?" "No, not yet." She said, "Oh, I got it." And she opens and she looks at hers. And then within 60 seconds, the word comes to me that I couldn't get. Okay. It's like we're entangled in this sort of oneness with the person that's your life partner. Another one is, we tip the footy teams, and the first game of the weekend, you've got to pick the team on the margin. 2 weeks in a row now, we've picked the same team and the same margin of what we predict the game will be. So we have this power to connect with the people that we open our energy fields to, that is getting us ready to get beyond human language and to move into more of a telepathic thought form. I think that we communicate with each other in ways that go beyond words. I mean, we can tell when somebody's words don't match their actions. We get that. That's our intuition. That's our energetic connection between people. With society the way we have, we are moved into separation and even competition against each other. I've got 30 people that have applied for that job, or 20 people have gone for that rental. Now, what would happen if those 20 people came together and said, well, who needs this house the most? I think it's that mum that's got 2 babies and her husband passed away from cancer last year. I think maybe she should have the house. I mean, as we moved more towards a level of cooperation and connection with each other, I mean, we're not going to need those people at the top who are running the planet. They'll be working for us.
Yeah, we'll be more self-sustaining.
That's it.
Yeah, absolutely. With tying it kind of in the same direction, and I'm just thinking of the listeners and that, and with the work you do and through Michael Newton Institute, and certainly want to give them a mention, and the work you do with Life Between Lives. And it's the Michael Newton Institute regression, Life Between Lives, or all of the above? firstly? And secondly, is how have you found that work supports us on this awakening journey as well, which I feel is a really important point to cover.
Okay. Well, let's start there. And for those of the listeners who aren't familiar with Michael's work, Michael was a psychologist in Los Angeles originally back in the 1960s. And he started to do work with people in his practice, and someone flipped into a past life, then someone flipped into where they go between their lifetimes. And through that person, he started to explore that there's a realm of spirit that we go to between our incarnations. I mean, when he started, he didn't even believe in reincarnation.
Yeah, it's wild, eh?
But he researched his clients' findings and wrote to the War Office and in London and got all of this information back about one of his particular clients who claimed to be a World War I person and had this pain on his shoulder he couldn't get rid of. Michael energetically helped him heal a bayonet wound from 1915 on the Somme, and the guy walked out of his clinic with no pain. It was crazy. So that got him thinking. In the end, he worked out how to take people out of past lives in between. He did 7,000 case studies, published some books, started to teach other people. I worked beside him a long time during his lifetime, ran his organisation for 10 years, still there on the board now. And it's now that work and taking people on those journeys has stretched to 40 different countries and 20 languages. And, Petra and I are, honoured to be a part of that leadership group that run this work for the world. But what it offers is it takes people not just to a past lifetime, but to an in-between place where you can ask the questions about, why did I incarnate into this incarnation? What am I here to do? What's my purpose for this lifetime? Who are the people that I incarnate with regularly? And that body of work led to those best-selling books and the formation of Michael Newton Institute, all of those practitioners around the world, 220 of us now. And that work too is evolving from how Michael started. Now, understand that his 7,000 cases have been reproduced by our people 10 times over now. So we've got roughly 70,000 cases based in people's various files in different places around the world. I've got 3 boxes of files right here. But there's something in that even the structure that he built about soul groups, going to a spiritual council, getting advice, the soul groups are our buddies we incarnate with across lifetimes. Even that work is starting to evolve. We're seeing people need less structure when they go to the other side. We're seeing a general shift from people saying, what's my purpose? They were telling me this 20 years ago when I first did this work. This is my purpose for this lifetime. People are now going from me to we. We have come to make a difference to the world. I'm here to be something bigger than me. I'm here to be part of a wave of change for humanity. So that part is speeding up. And the other thing, if I can really drag us out there for a moment, is people who are incarnating here who have a soul lineage that is very diverse and have spent a lot of incarnations in non-human form. They've been part of other civilizations on other planets, other dimensions. They discuss with me what it's like to be an energetic being in a society of light. I've been listening to people say these things over and over and over for 20 years, Guy. And having been in this work from when it first picked up speed to where we are now, the sessions are going off the charts in terms of the diversity of what we're experiencing now. And that more than anything is why I feel that humanity is awakening and moving into a new vibration. The veil is getting thin. And I feel that this evolution of consciousness is further advanced than what people realize.
Yeah, right. It's fascinating, isn't it? Like all those things I just want to pick one and go, well, what does that mean? Because, what got me on my path was having mystical experiences, really, at the end of the day. And at first they were quite terrifying because I had to overcome that I'm not my body. That was one of the biggest belief systems I consciously know, yeah, I'm a spirit in a human body. I get it, I'm all in. But when it happens, so that's too experiential to actually just thought is two very different things for me, and even to this day, I still ponder on some of these things as remarkable, which is why I get so passionate about these conversations and things like that. What do you think our potential is then? Where can we actually take this? If we are a soul, if we are having incarnations, if we are, I guess, repeating to learn for the soul's evolution, for the collective consciousness evolution, what is our potential, do you think?
There's a lot of philosophical comments or, intentions to talk about making this place heaven on earth. And I think that when we get past the lower vibrations of what keeps humanity stuck, I think that the potential of humanity is phenomenal. I watched a video of one of the major universities in Melbourne, and they're talking about where they want to go with quantum computing. And I'm thinking, why don't you just get your answers straight out of the field? Why do we need a quantum processor that starts to do, puts computer code in its superposition of 0 or 1 with binary, which was the way most coding works, but it can either be the 0 or the 1, which speeds up the processing. Well, I'd like to see us not actually need a computer. I'd like to see us tap into the quantum field, into the limitless possibility, and pull out the answers that we seek. The ether around us is the real internet.
Yeah.
Everything's there. The whole universe is there for our taking, but we have to believe in ourselves that we can access it and that it's possible. And humanity's not ready for that sort of power yet, because I think we've got to sweep away all the dark things, wars and famines and control and, greed. Once we sweep away all of that from humanity, I think we're ready to explore far more. We can project our consciousness over distance, and we can investigate anything, and that's been used with some success by governments for remote viewing of missile sites in the Middle East and that sort of stuff by the CIA. We see these snippets of our potential everywhere. Like Melina and I picking the same footy tips and the same words in Wordle. If we can harness that, then a lot of what holds us back can be transcended. And we move closer to a level of oneness and kindness to each other. That means humanity can move into a golden age. I think it's closer than we feel, but we all have to stand up and we have to say no to certain things. If that TV's so much violence on television, Guy.
Yeah.
So many movies, all that, I just turn them off. If we all turn off that type of entertainment, then we can resensitize ourselves as to what's true and right. It's love, it's kindness, it's looking after each other, it's helping each other when we're down. That's who humanity's meant to be. Not ones that shoot each other or rob each other or do violence or invade other countries. That's not who we're meant to be.
Totally. Because I even ponder on, I say the hardware, but the physical body and its capabilities, the hardware, and I kind of look at consciousness as a software. It's a very simplistic way of looking at it. And it's like, can the hardware deal with the software upgrades, over time? Because even when we run our retreats, we generally spend 5 days together creating almost like a coherent unity of people that are all collectively contributing to the greater whole.
Yeah.
And once that starts to happen and they really start moving, it's pretty, as you can imagine, right? It's profound what can start happening. And we're in this higher resonance of space. And the synchronicities, the way people are feeling, the conversations, it's like everyone's animated and alive and present.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful. And I think, wow, is this actually possible? Not for 35 people, but for a country. a civilization and things like that. And the other question I have for you on all of this, Pete, like, is what I've noticed as well on my journey of going and holding space for people is that it's almost like my body has had to evolve to be able to, and then the level of energy, consciousness, whatever you call it, has been able to process quicker and without actually getting rocked by the soup of energy that might be coming at me or in that space. Have you had any thoughts upon that and experience and what the potential is from that side of things as well?
I believe there's a whole group of people taking incarnations here now and they're various ages already that are empaths. And I'm sure you've worked with that type of energy before. One of the things I do with people is, who need it, is we go back pre-birth and we reinstall in the womb before they're born 3 protocols. The first is to be able to observe and not absorb.
Wow.
Okay, so we change the way their energetic infrastructure works. The second is to be able to know what's theirs and someone else's. And the third is to give them the free will for energetic discernment, so they only engage with the energies that they choose to. And it returns free will because we all go into the soup every day. You walk into a big shopping centre a week before Christmas. Oh, my God, you've got to run out of there. So you can walk into that space observing, knowing that it's not yours, choosing to engage in the energies that you want to, perhaps in the shops where someone serves you. So we rewire the empaths to bring them peace. So I feel that this whole wave of people empathically who are incarnating on this planet now are here to address or redress the balance, because I think we've become desensitized to violence, to crime, to difficulty. News media and all that do a great job of desensitizing us to all that stuff, so that it just becomes, oh yeah, we see this stuff all the time, so it doesn't matter anymore. But the empaths really feel it. They feel it deep, they feel it big, and it affects them a great deal because that's how we're all meant to feel. So as we resensitize humanity, then the desensitized stuff's going to fall away and we're going to say no to it. But I think that people are becoming more sensitive. I know what it's like. You hold the group of a large group like you run. I mean, that's big energy. That's a tough gig. And to be able to hold that space and to create that unity that you talked about before, Guy, I mean, that's a gift. That's not easy to do.
Thank you. No, I do feel like it's just in me, if that makes sense. Like there's always been that pull to do it. Like I can't even explain why. I remember even telling my wife I'm going to sell my company and run retreats and teach people how to meditate. She's like, what? Okay. For sure. But you mentioned something there about the installation at the womb, if I'm not mistaken. Can you break down how that is possible? Because you're going, because it was just put out there and I thought, oh, that's fascinating.
Okay. Well, I'm Pete and you're Guy, and we're mature age men, and we're sitting here in our humanness, if you like, well practiced after some decades. But if we go back, and you go back to the formative years, the reason that we pick up so much in that first decade of life is because we're not fully in our human form yet. We're still sort of a little bit in theta states, or, we absorb stuff from mum and dad and the environments around us, et cetera, et cetera. But if we go back before we're born, then you've got an eternal consciousness getting used to a human body. Now, a lot of this is based on some of Michael Newton's work as well, pre-birth stuff. When you're pre-birth, you have access to the life you're about to lead. Now, it only happens if you move outside of time and space to be able to get there, which is what we do. But once there, you've got access to this life you're about to lead. You can change the programming heading into it. You've got access to the immortal memory because you're not fully in human memory yet. So you can pull in ideas and thoughts that might be from other lifetimes or even in between. The third thing you've got access to is the energetic, quantumly entangled lineage of your ancestors. Okay, so a lot of people are doing intergenerational healing now, ancestral healing, and that's how we're cleaning up the collective unconscious. Because so many people everywhere are doing different types of ancestral healing. And it's a beautiful wave that everyone's doing because we're cleaning up humanity's past to raise the overall vibration of the collective, ready for us to move to a new consciousness. So there's incredible power in that pre-birth condition because you've got a foot in every camp. You're in touch with the ancestors, you're in touch with spirit.
Wow.
And you're pre-birth before the patterns and the conditioning have set in. Now, what we should be doing in society is we should be running stuff from the womb to fix a whole manner of things. I mean, I can just say to somebody in that expanded state when they're outside of time and space and they're in touch with that pre-birth condition, and they've had a terrible childhood, for example. I can ask them a question along the lines of, why did you choose this family? Of all the families you could have had on this planet, why did you choose this one? And I get questions like, oh, I'm here to help them. Or this is where I'm going to learn about difficulty so I can help others heal later in life. I get these very expanded, superconscious answers to these questions that we ask if you've built the right environment for them to access it. And it can be life-changing, guy. There's a depth and a richness in that pre-birth state that most people don't realize.
That's incredible. I'm so glad I asked the question. It gave me goosebumps when you were saying that. I never thought of it like that before. And because it's happening beyond our current space and time, this reality is in the eternal now, then as you go back into that point, and is it then you're then working directly with the soul, and the soul can then reprogram it, reorganize it, whatever it means, and then that has that knock-on effect through the timelines that you live now, from birth to this present moment?
Yeah, absolutely. And that can be a deliberate ripple in what you do. The quantum field doesn't depend on time and space, but it does work with things like quantum entanglement. Now, there's a spiritual entanglement between you here and your soul back in the place of spirit, because your soul is multidimensional and can be in many places at once, and you don't have to cram the whole thing into your human body. Michael Newton's research showed us that you carry your soul essence, but there's some of it in other places. Quantum physicists will tell us that time and space doesn't exist as we know it. You know, they'll talk about superstring theory, and there'll be 12 different dimensions, 1 of time and 11 of space. So time and space is not the same as we feel it is, right, left, up, down, back and forth. And then there's time and you're locked into it. Well, I talk to people all the time that are in there yesterday. You know, I had a session for a lady once, and I said, we're recording it, and I said, when do I say it is? Because I was on the 1st of May and she was on the 30th of April. So which month are we in? So we're in different time zones, different countries, different hemispheres. So time's not set in anything. Time's just an idea. As for space, you know, when they do the quantum entanglement experiments and they move subatomic particles that have a relationship hundreds of miles away from each other, and they do something here and it makes the other one go as well. So, and that's instantaneous, and that's faster than the speed of light, and there's no time for a thought form to go from one place to another. So for those two things to still be connected, then space can't be the same either.
Yeah.
Now, if we look at this fluidity of time and space, what does that mean for us to develop in people and to help them heal and to grow and to explore? I mean, what's possible in the quantum field? Well, we're quantumly entangled with our ancestors because biologically we carry their DNA. You go back, parents of parents of parents of parents and parents of parents. You know, you've only got to go back, like, I think 600 years to realize you've got 4 million grandparents times whatever the number is. Whoa. But if you just go, you can do the maths. Anyone can do the maths.
Far out.
You've got 2 parents, 4 grandparents, 8 great-grandparents, 16 great-great-grandparents. You keep doubling that back. You allow for 25 years per generation. It used to be even less in the old days. And you've only got to go back 600 or 700 years and you reach 1 billion.
So it just blew my mind.
Yeah. So what are we actually carrying? What are we carrying in our being, in our DNA? We've got access to the collective consciousness because we're quantumly entangled with that many people. So what do we truly carry in our quantum field? We're quantumly entangled with our spiritual origins. We're quantumly entangled with our ancestors. We're quantumly entangled with the life we're about to lead because we chose it before we came here. I mean, the potential of this to bring change to people's lives is phenomenal.
That's wild, and I'm thinking you're like shit. That's a lot of healing. You know what I mean? Like when you talk about that, and because I know they've done studies on rats, even like genetically as well as not energetically. Like it's epigenetics is getting passed down. I think they've proved up to 7 generations now, or something like that. So, do you feel that this time in history is not only we healing our personal lives, but we're healing our ancestors' lives to create a new world then for the children yet to come, or the children that are here ultimately? So that's the first question. And the second question is, should I get overwhelmed by the thought of that there's 600 years worth of, like you say, you go back, is all that trauma to be healed as well? Or can it be done in a moment? Like, what are your thoughts on all this?
My thoughts are that it's an incredible melting pot, and I don't think that all of what we've brought from the ancestors is bad. There's been incredible courage. There's been fortitude. They've changed countries. They've, fought in wars for a greater truth. They've been revolutionaries. They've been farmers that tilled the soil. They've been, women that gave birth. If it wasn't for women, there'd be no humanity because they create life within them. And that's very undervalued and isn't talked about enough, that, every woman has the power to create life. But there's something in this that is, we hold the history of humanity with us. So how do we choose to hold it? Do we hold the history of humanity in its highest possible vibration from all that we've accomplished, or do we hold the trauma of previous generations? Now, for us to enter into that with an intention to help our ancestors hold their own space with any of the ancestral work that I've ever done, it's all been about how do you set the ancestors free from their burdens and, embellish their gifts for them. Now, every time we do that, we're cleaning up the collective consciousness of humanity's history, as I said before, ready for us to move to a new place. History is something that we can, we don't have to be proud of, but we can recognize it for the learnings and the growth that it's brought to us. We've got 8 billion people on this planet now. It's hard to get your head around that type of number. And then if you add all of the ancestors that they've come from, then the history of humanity is this incredible melting pot of remarkable events.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. But I think we can choose how we hold our history. I think we can clean up any of the pieces we don't want. I think we can hold in good stead the wonderful opportunities that our ancestors have given us. I mean, we have great lives.
We do.
But none of it would be possible without the hard work of all those ancestors.
Mm. Wow, incredible! When you do work with someone, how long a space of that time does that take normally? Multiple sessions and things like that.
Most of my sessions are one-offs.
Okay.
But I'll meet with somebody and I'll, using the different approaches to all this stuff, I'll usually craft something that's unique to them. Life between lives takes longer. Sometimes that's about 4 hours if we do it the traditional way, but sometimes people will say, well, I just want to know this one piece. And, there's some flexibility in that model now there where Michael gave us such a fantastic foundation that we're exploring different aspects of that now from his methodology. Petra and I are in the thick of that. So, there's something about how we bring that to life in new ways for a new generation of people who are seeking a spiritual path that needs some level of flexibility.
Yeah.
So, yeah, normally a couple of hours, sometimes longer if it's some of the deeper LBL work. But if you scope it right, you can do an incredible amount in a short space of time.
Yeah. No, fantastic. And I think one thing I'm kind of proud of, I've always stayed curious and open and constantly explored different things, different ideas, and they surprise you when you least expect it. And you have these revelations and you go, oh my God, like you say, start listening to your intuition. And if you get called to explore something like this, dive in. Why not?
Yeah. Well, I've got this old saying, Guy, that every moment of every day, your soul knows exactly what it's doing. Yeah. The human part of us might be freaking out, but don't worry about it. It's just the human part. Your soul's got the tiller and it's steering us in the right direction.
Absolutely. Absolutely. If any last bits of advice before we wrap the podcast up, we've covered quite a few things today. And I think about if people are in, I guess, that feeling a bit lost, maybe a bit anxious, maybe a bit frustrated with the world right now and things like that. Like you say, it's so easy to have this projected at us that we are disempowered, that we are not these all-powerful beings having this experience, and we are disconnected, and maybe we don't feel worthy enough to lean into our greatness. Like there's all sorts of things that's projected upon us all the time, isn't it?
There is. The best advice I can offer people is to remember how we're different from the animal kingdom. And the animal kingdom's got far more to offer than we realize as well in terms of what we can learn from them. But what human beings have is the ability to create hope. And hope is the first step towards intention. I have great hope for humanity. I used to say that many years ago, but now I have great intention for humanity because I think it's time for us to rise in our magnificence and to make this planet everything that it was supposed to be originally. And I say to the people who are listening, it doesn't matter what you do. It might just be that podcast, that book, that conversation with somebody, just do something. Now, our awakening is a trail of breadcrumbs, and you don't have to see past the first breadcrumb. More recently for me, I'd done non-fiction books, but I even moved to write a fictional book to try and get across to a new audience and all of that. And what I always say to people is so much information available out there now in so many different ways, but follow the path towards the people with the highest vibration. If somebody's not good for you, if someone lowers your vibe, leave them behind.
Yeah.
Chase the higher vibrations, and that's where the breadcrumbs will lead you.
Yeah. Couldn't agree more. I remember going to see Tony Robbins, nearly 20 years ago, right? And I did the whole weekend event there, walked across hot coals and, you name it. But there was one thing that really stuck with me to this day. And he said, proximity. Proximity is power. And it's like whoever or whatever you're in proximity to, you're going to resonate with.
Yeah.
And this is, and start taking conscious steps to people that inspire you, lift you up, encourage you. And, like you say, have that vibration. And if they're not serving you, just let it go.
Yeah. You got to hang out with the people you resonate with. That's why I love coming on your show, Guy.
That's it. I love this conversation today, Pete. Absolutely brilliant, mate. Where I have no doubt people are going to come and seek you out after listening to this podcast today. Where can I send them to, Pete?
Yeah, there's a couple of websites. There's quantumconsciousness.com.au for Australia, and we've got a big group of people globally now that are doing this type of work with me, and that's Institute for Quantum Consciousness, or one word, .com.
Beautiful. Are you just mainly teaching, or are you still doing one-on-ones?
Still doing some one-on-ones, yeah. Still doing a few of those a week because I love to keep my hand in. And I learned so much from my clients. They've been my teachers for 20 years now, Guy. That's where you learn it. That's where you learn the work, through the eyes of people as they surf the universe.
Yeah, exactly. No, I couldn't agree more. And you do remote as well, right? So people can log on a Zoom and things like that.
Yeah, we all got into Zoom a few years back and never left.
Yeah, well, why wouldn't you? I mean, it's a worldwide audience now. I know people tuning from all around the world when they listen to the podcast, and it's beautiful. So, I wanted to bring so much awareness to you and what you're doing, Pete. I just think, amazing, mate. And
thanks, Guy,
today.
and thanks for what you're offering to people. But on top of all that you do, you're actually pumping energy into our purposes for what we do and for what we bring, and you magnify our message. So thank you.
Yeah, you're very welcome. Very welcome. Thanks, Pete.
Thanks, Guy.